All right, time to put the head onto the engine. So this is kind of our last chance to blow out all the passages, so we're going to go ahead and do that. You also want to hit the holes where the bolts are going to go for the head. And we'll do the head itself too and blow those out while we have a chance. All right. I'm just going to give this one final wipe down with some brake clean. Well, I've already done this about 4 times now, but never know. Don't want some piece of junk stuck on there. And feel all the way around, make sure you don't have anything on there. Any last minute fixes, this is the time. Okay. Head gasket. Here's our head gasket. I went with the multi-layer steel gasket from the turbo engine. Of course, that's a really nice upgrade. Here's the part number for that. And you'll need to buy 2, of course, and left and right are both the same. So the thing to pay attention to is the this hole here. The gasket's fairly symmetrical looking, except for that hole. Of course, you're going to line up the oil returns, but make sure you don't have any gunk on the gasket. Drop it into place. Of course, these 2 dowels will help align that. Everything's lining up, everything looks good. So, time to drop the head on. Here's where we ended up on the head's surface. It actually, I think it turned out pretty good. And it's perfectly flat, so we're good. So, again, this hole here is going to line up with that hole there. So, we're going to be really careful here. Drop it down all in one nice smooth motion. We don't want to rub it on the gasket or anything, or get one dowel lined up. There it goes. And this one. Come on, Papa. There we go. She's in. So here's our head bolts, and the 2 miscolored ones, if you will, are the 2 that go in the center here. Before we drop those in, the manual does say to put a little bit of oil on the threads and on the washer so that you get a nice true torque reading. So I'm going to go get our little oil can. Let's put a little oil on there. don't want too much because it'll end up filling the hole where the bolt goes, and then you'll get a really bad reading. I'll put a little bit of coat on the washer. And just drop them in the hole. Six times. We're going to do this, of course. Okay. So just get these finger tight. There is a sequence to these to tighten them, A through F. So it helps if you actually label the top of these so that you don't get mixed up. You don't have to keep referring back to the book all the time. So I think we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so the correct sequence for tightening the head is A, B, C, D, E, and F. And the very first step is to go to 22 foot-pounds in that order. 22 dialed in. Okay, we'll start with A. B, and C, D, E, and F. Next we go to 51 foot-pounds in the same order. 51. Starting with A again. B, not happy with how crunchy that one sounds. Let's get a little more oil under his seat there. That's better. F. Okay. Next step, back all the bolts off by 180 degrees first, then 180 degrees again. 180 degrees, so it's going to be right there. We're going to do them in the reverse order that we tighten them. E. D. C. B and A. So another 180. So now you'll notice the bolt should be super loose. Like this one I can spin out by hand, and this is the one that we had all that creaky sound on, so I'm actually going to pull that one off now and add a little more oil to them. Not happy with that guy. There we go. Hopefully that'll be a little better. Okay, so now we're doing bolts A and B to 25 foot-pounds. So those are the two center bolts. Okay. Tighten the remaining bolts in the right order to 11 foot-pounds. So C, T, E, Not much torque. Okay, then we go on all bolts 90 degrees in alphabetical sequence. So for that, I've got us a little gadget here. Okay, so we've just got a dial indicator on here. I've got it set with its bar against the one of the springs. And then you just turn the needle's separate, so you just turn that to 0. Like so. We'll put our ratchet in. And we simply turn this till we get to 90. That way you don't lose track of where you are, so you don't have to take a big long 90-degree swing. I'll move this so you guys can see. There we are. 90. So I'm going to go through, do the rest of them to 90 here real quick. Okay, final step. You guessed it, one more 90 degree on all of them. So I'll go ahead and crank those on. There we go. One down. There we go. One head complete. So I won't bore you with the second one. It's just copy paste. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the other side now, and then I'll bring you guys back. Okay, so small update on the old Subi engine here. I cleaned up this head, got it all ready to pop back on. Was cleaning up the bolts and noticed this one doesn't look right. If you look at the threads, it's kind of gimpy. I tried rethreading it just by running a die over it, and something's happened to this at some point in its life. So I've got another one coming. Should be here tomorrow. So that kind of put a stop to the head work for now. So in the meantime, I did get a new thermostat, so we'll go ahead and pop that in, and at least we'll get that part finished. Comes with a new O-ring, so sorry, seal. I guess not an O-ring, it's a seal. So we'll get this in, and then we're kind of stuck waiting for the bolt, the head bolt, because you can't go torquing those things down without all of them. So yeah, I did off camera because it's not really relevant. This line here was leaking right here at this fitting, and probably from me and the last guy, I putting the power steering pump up there and tweaking the line. It finally let go. This whole reservoir drained out. So I actually thought I had lost a bunch of the ATF out of the transmission as I was doing this job because it's an automatic. But no, it turns out this entire reservoir drained. And if you look at the cap, use ATF Dextron. So that's where our fluid came from. So I put new ATF in here, and then I put a socket on here with the drill and rotated it to bleed it all out and make sure I didn't have any leaks, and everything was good. So the reason I want to do this now is because obviously the connection down there is really hard to get to with the engine in, and right now it's super simple with the engine out. So that's why I wanted to pressure test it as well to make sure it was all good before we pop the engine back in. So yeah, this guy unfortunately on pause for a little bit. I do have this side put all back together with the cover on it and everything. I cleaned all these up. I did spend a lot of time and cleaned up this cover as well. So it's all ready to go. Cleaned up pretty decently. So that's all ready to rock once we get the bolt. So yeah, I'll get a couple, I think they're just, yeah, a couple of bolts on there, and we should be able to put the new thermostat in real quick. Just a couple of 10mm bolts on there. And there's our thermostat. Let's see, it's a 170-degree thermostat, STC, okay, so it's not a stock one. Seal's still very pliable. I don't think it's been too long since that's been replaced. And with these, usually you want the bleeder hole here, this little where this hole is, you want that usually pointing up to let it bleed best, but since this is just a horizontal design, we don't need to worry about orientation too much. Pop this guy in, make sure the seal seats down nicely. Don't nick it. Surfaces look really good, but I'm going to give that a quick wipe. Everything looks nice and clean in there. Okay, reinstall the bolts. Don't over torque these, they only call for 4.7 foot-pounds. Which is not much. There we go. Complete. I know that was pretty short little segment, but less to do later. Okay, second half of the engine head going on. Couldn't find my torque wrench, so I'm just going to give it the old click, click, good. Nope, just seeing if you were listening. Of course not. These are all torqued. We did the whole torque sequence, 90 degrees twice, we're good to go. The next thing we want to do is clean all this up with some brake clean, blow it out with some compressed air, get rid of any fuzz that left on there, and then we've got to clean these. And then we've got to clean this. This is the camshaft cap with the camshaft sitting in it right now, so it'll go the other way around, of course. I've got all the bolts soaking in a plastic bottle with some brake clean in it. They look like they've cleaned up pretty good. We'll get these out of here, dry them off. And today's flavor of brake clean, does this not remind you of the Love Bug? I mean, is that on purpose? I rather like it. It's pretty cool. I bought a case of it. All right. After we clean all these surfaces up, I'll show you in the manual what it looks like, but we need to put a bead of something like Ultra Gray in this channel here, and there's a specific spot to put it there. So I'll bring you along when we goop that up on the workbench, and then we'll bring it over and plop it into place. I also want to get the rocker arm assemblies cleaned up and ready to go, because part of the torque sequence for the cap involves the rocker arms if you have both off. So we're gonna do that at the same time as well. So let's just give this a little spritz down and wipe it all up, clean it up. We'll make sure we have the parts ready. By the way, this is a new seal going on this end. The caps get reused in this kit, which, I mean, they're plastic. There's nothing that goes wrong with them anyways, but the rubber seals, that's a new one on there. All right, I'll clean this up and get you back when we do the silicone part. Okay, so here's where what our cap looks like now. I've got all the bolts out, drying off. I've got a little assembly lube put on the journal surfaces where the crankshaft's going to go. Sorry, camshaft is going to go. And we're going to do the same over here on the engine now, just so that we have some lubrication during startup. You can use engine oil and paint if you don't have assembly lube handy. It's not that big a deal, but get something on there. A little of this stuff goes a long ways. Should be 4 spots. Okay, there we go. Now we can drop the camshaft into place. I like to pop these in with the cap on the end already and the seal in place. You can pop all those in later, but I find it easier to line everything up now with it on there. It has to drop in nice and even. The seal goes flush with the side of the engine. If you're gonna do this with it installed previous like this, either make sure you're keeping an eye on it the whole time, making sure it stays flush, or leave it protruding slightly so you can pop it in, because once you get this cap on here, you can't obviously pull it back out. So if you're gonna do this trick, make sure you get it lined up the whole time. And there we go, that is the camshaft part. I keep calling it a camshaft, but it is a camshaft, that's why. Okay, so now we're gonna do the RTV portion. So we'll just go over to the bench here, it's easier. Okay, just gotta get my electrical tape off the tip here so it didn't dry out. Get a little test squeeze. It dried out. Of course it dried out. Yeah, I clean this out. Okay, so I find it easiest to just use your thumb to control the flow from the back side here. And we'll just start at one edge, work our way along. You want a nice continuous bead. If you break the bead, just go back, overlap, and keep going. You don't want any joints where it could leak. Okay, that's one done. Here's what you're looking at. Nice even 3mm bead. I'll quickly knock out the other side here. I do like to put a tiny bit here and here just for safety. I know it's not needed, but alright, so we're ready to drop this cap in place. And obviously it goes this way. So we'll try to drop it straight down all in one motion. If we screw up, okay, I'm going to pull the seal back just slightly. It's easier to push it in than it is to pull it out. Cap's in the right place. So let's drop her down. Just take your time, get it on straight. And you want to just squish it slightly till you can see some of the silicone kind of ooze out. We're good there. And the Ultra Gray tells you to leave the parts loosely assembled and then torque to spec after 1 hour. So let's just get the seal in nice and flush here. Okay. So there's our seal for the camshaft. Flush all around the housing, which is what you want. And on the other end, the cap, same thing. It's flush where it's supposed to sit. We're going to put a couple of bolts. I'm just going to put a couple bolts in loosely just to hold this down. So we'll just grab the two middle ones here. Just doing these finger tight just to get the silicone to sit in the right position here. And for now, that's it. We're going to leave this for, at least half an hour or so, and then we'll put some more bolts in loosely. But for now, we'll let this cure for a bit. Okay, so next we install these 4 bolts, just temporarily tighten them. I'm just going to a couple of foot-pounds just to snug the cap down, and then we'll take a look at our silicone job. So you want to see a little silicone coming out here in that ridge. Remember, we filled the top edge of the ridge sort of all around, but you don't want to see excessive silicone squeezing out. That means you put too much in. Right here we have a little too much here, probably the speed, but it's not excessive. I'm going to leave it the way it is. A little bit there on that edge you can see, so not a major amount squeezing out over here, just a tiny bit, which tells me we got a pretty good seal going on. So that's exactly what I want to see, just the tiniest amount of silicone coming out along the edge here. And here up against the cap. We're looking really good. Looks good around the outside. And the seal's looking like it's in the right spot still. So the next step actually is to drop the rocker assembly into place. So we've got our rocker assembly, and there's 2 different ones. The one with the 2 rocker arms, and we've got the one with the 4 rocker arms. So the individual 4 are for the intakes. The other 2, the one with the 2 arms is for the exhaust. So this being the bottom of the engine is the exhaust side, obviously. And these are a little bit tricky to line up. You just got to kind of line everything up. And then your bolts should drop into place. Don't tighten any of this until, just do hand tight until you've got everything lined up properly. But there is these notches here that these arms fit into, so you can't really go wrong once you've got it set and lined up here. Just finger tight these down. Might have to turn the camshaft. You might have to turn the camshaft just a little bit to get this to lie flat. There we go. Otherwise you'll be forcing one of the valves down, which might make it a little more difficult. Okay, we'll get the intake side on. This one's a little more difficult because you got to line up 4 of them at once, but there she goes. Okay, if you need to turn the camshaft you can always just grab one of your gears, your sprocket, camshaft sprocket, and turn it. See? We're in a pretty good spot where everything's laying flat. Yeah, right there. See how there's no resistance, and we've popped down a little bit more here. We had a little tension on it. Now none of these have tension. So we can run these bolts down a little more by hand. There we go. Incidentally, forgot to mention this, but it's probably quite obvious when you go to assemble it. When you put the heads on, the heads doesn't matter. When you put the camshafts on, make sure the engine is in a position where all the cylinders are in their center bores. That way you're not going to have any interference with the valves with the engine, because obviously we don't have the timing set on the front of the engine right now, so we don't know where everything is, right? Timing could be way out, but if you're centered in all the bores on your cylinders, there's no way any of this can hit, so you're free to spin and turn as you need to until we get that timing set on the front. Okay, so now we're going to torque down the camshaft bolts in a sequence, and it's outside in, so it's A, B, C, D, and then they go E, F, G, H. So we want 18.1 foot-pounds. So we'll start with A, B, C, D from the inside out. In a crisscross pattern. And then it's E, F, G, H. Just crisscross on the outside. Okay. Next we do the larger of the torque bolts. The whole idea here is you're working from the inside of the camshaft and cap and rocker assembly outward. And this is IJKLMN to 13 foot-pounds. There we go. Now we're going to put in the rest of the smaller internal ones. Allen heads, 5mm. Should be 4 more here. 7.2 foot-pounds. So it's crisscross in the center, and then it's just up and down on the outsides. And lastly, it's bolts W and X, which go over here. They are also 7.2 foot-pounds. Okay, that's it, boys and girls. We've got the camshaft back in, the rockers assembled. Things good. Next is to put the cap on, but we're going to only loosely put it on because we just to keep dirt out, but after that we need to do the front of the engine, so at this point it's only to keep dirt out. I've got our cover here all cleaned up. We're going to go ahead and install a few pieces here. So our kit comes with new seals for the spark plug tubes. Those just seat all the way in. And we've got a new gasket for the cover as well. I find it easier to put the two opposite curves in and then work your way each way. Otherwise, if you start at one end and go all the way around, you seem to end up with a stretched seal that doesn't quite fit at the other end properly. Which isn't a big deal, you can just start over, but it's just easier like this for me anyways. And you just have to stretch into the corners. There we go. Good. Just drop that down. And the kit should come with new seals here. The longer bolts go at the top of the engine. Okay. And I'm missing a bolt here, so I'm going to go for a little treasure hunt and see if I can find it. But that's got her sealed up from dust and dirt. Our next step will be tacking the front. So we've got obviously our sprockets to reinstall on the end of the camshafts. We've got some idlers to evaluate and probably change out, tensioner. Basically all this stuff's got to go back on the front of the engine. So yeah, I'll get you guys back when we get ready for that.